it feels so unnatural. And Elizabeth, maybe I don't know what it's been like for where you are, but we all just got released.
Right, that's true. Right.
Yeah, that's what I heard. We've been essential through the entire time. We could show through the entire time. It's just,
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's so a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fortunate for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is good. I mean,
All right.
I
I think we'll get ourselves kick-started here, guys. Thanks for everybody for your patience. Thanks for jumping into the room. This is Matt Braden from the professional staff at GPAR. Welcome to our Women Warriors event this evening. Just wanted to do a couple of things before we get into that. Election time is right around the corner. Kind of got lost in the mix with a lot of stuff that's been going on. So something new for Pennsylvania is that you're able to vote by mail. So that might be really great timing for something like that, to have that option. So you have until next week to get that into the mail. So keep an eye. GPAR will be pushing out some info about that. PAR has as well. So keep an eye for that. It's a great option. And if we look at Philadelphia, they've vastly restricted the amount of polling places due to COVID-19. So it's probably a really great option to have. Not trying to tell you should vote by mail, but it's pretty timely.
I got mine in the mail yesterday. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm showing you. See? There you go.
Oh,
There's
wow.
There
mine.
you go.
Good job.
Speaking of lighter things, the Listing Lounge, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, it's our social happy hour. We raise a glass. We have something to celebrate this week. You guys, as Heather said, have been freed from captivity and are able to professionally do your work. So tomorrow night, let's celebrate the good behavior, the fun times, and getting back to work with all the new restrictions, parameters, but whatever it is, you guys are resilient. You'll figure it out and you'll make it work. Going to next week, Tuesday, because we're off on Monday. Usually we have coffee talk on Monday morning, but it'll be Tuesday, 9 o'clock. Stephanie's special guest will be City Controller Rebecca Reinhardt. If you've been paying attention to Philadelphia politics and what's been going on with the budget, Controller Reinhardt has some very, very interesting views that are definitely different than those of Mayor Kenny and the budget that he introduced and then modified. So we'll have her for a cup of coffee and some good conversation and your questions, as well as Stephanie's getting answered. And then we just kick it off and back to Stephanie. So thank you everyone for joining us. Great pleasure to see everyone here. Let's have a fun time tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us, and Joan, Darlene, Elizabeth, Kathy, where is everybody? Heather. Thank you for joining us tonight. Heather will be our monitor, but I have a special announcement for next week. Our GPAR Town Hall on Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we will have our special guest, Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney. So very excited about that. And with that, I'm going to give it over to Heather.
So everybody, if you know anything about Philadelphia politics, that's going to be a really good one. So make sure you block off showings. All right, no showings around that time with Mayor Kenny, because I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of questions. So welcome, Women Warriors. How is everybody tonight?
Excellent. Thank you.
Happy.
Yeah,
Very happy. Smiles from ear to ear.
Yes.
It's a great day to be free, right? It's a great day to be free. So I figured we'd start something out with a little bit of a lightning round, which anyone of you could answer, and maybe, we'll just go around the room and just see, and you can pick or choose, if you want to answer the question. If not, I can go on to the next one. Doesn't matter. So if we can, let's start out. We'll go in order from Elizabeth Mendenhall, who was our 2018 NAR president. Then we'll go to state, which would be the Kathy McQuilkin, 2017 PAR president. And then Darlene Meekins, who is 2020 Philadelphia Metropolitan Board of Realtors president, who's here on here with us today. And then we'll go to Stephanie Biello, who's our current president right now. And what a time for you two ladies, I swear. And then Miss Joan Docktor, who is, happens to be my president. She's my broker. But boss lady, Miss Joan Docktor, from Berkshire Hathaway. So let's go in that order. And let me just know, how many years have you been in the real estate business? How many years have you been in any aspect of real estate? Where did you start? So Elizabeth?
Let's see. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hello. Nice to be here with you. Thank you for having me. Let's see. When did I start? When I was born. Our family's been in it since 1894. I joined the company in 1996. So I started as my dad's assistant. Didn't really know the difference between what it meant to be an agent, what it meant to be working in the company. But my mom said if you start early, you get a head start on things. And really kind of then became the CEO because I self-proclaimed the title in 2003.
Self-proclaimed.
Yeah, Elizabeth, you and I have a lot in common because I did the same thing with my family too. I just kind of took over and pushed my dad out. So,
Yeah.
Kathy, what about you?
So I've been in it 43 years in various aspects, and came to it with no previous involvement in my family with real estate. Grew up on a farm, was interested in farms and land, and that led me to this at the suggestion of my husband, because my training was in equine instructorship for both folks and horses, as well as stable management. That's what I went to school for after high school, and that was my focus.
Wow, that's, other than the land that the horses are on and the farm. I like that, Kathy.
Actually, handling clients is very much like working with young horses.
I hear you on that one. Darlene, what about you?
So I guess I'm the new one to real estate. I've been in it for about 8 years now. Prior to that, I worked in the telecom industry as a business analyst, team lead. Also did some X-ray for a while as well. So,
Well, see, it's real estate, managing people, same thing. So if you're in the telecom business.
yeah, actually, my hairdresser got me into real estate. We used to talk about it all the time, and I started inquiring about it, and she said, "Oh, I thought you were an agent. I tell you what, you get your license, and I'll give you all my rentals to start."
Nice.
So she told me what to do, and about a month or two later, I went back and said, "Okay, I got it. Now what?"
I like that. See, and it's the good referrals. Now, Darlene, is that do we have an underground hairstylist that we can,
She is pretty good. Listen, my hair was like up here, so when I started with her.
Some of us should, are wearing hats until we can figure this out, one step at a time.
Hey, I can do a little bit myself.
Well, Darlene, I'm going to, I'll see you from 6 feet away. I could use some help. Stephanie, what about you?
So I've been in about 18 years, and prior to that, I was doing business management with small businesses, and kind of got into it. I built a couple houses and thought, you know what, I really like this, like working with people, and kind of made that shift.
Nice. Miss Joan?
So I've been in it 34 years, and I have no family, before in real estate. I was a special education teacher for high school boys, and I was a little burnout. Happened to buy a house, looked pretty easy. Thought that's a lot easier than what I'm doing, and they make a lot of money. So I thought, I'll try this. And it actually was really good preparation for buyers and sellers, those special ed boys. So that's.
I think we take a little bit of what we learned along the way and utilize it with our clients every day.
Yeah.
In the public. I really do. So does anybody have any area of specialization? Anybody do anything other than residential? Kathy,
we're in Missouri. We're a town of 150,000, so we do everything. We do commercial land, investment, a lot of property management. So no area of specialty, just a general specialist.
Nice.
General specialist. I like that.
I like that too.
I'd like to claim that moniker as well. That's awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I do love to do farms and land. I still very much enjoy that. I work with a lot of folks because of that in the Chester County area, a lot of historic homes as well. So I find that really educational. I learn something new every time I walk into a different era of home construction. So I love that, and love my seniors. I love dealing now with a lot of clients who I've worked with 2 and 3 times in the past, and we're in the downsizing mode. So that's been very fun as well.
That's good. I like that too. I
Yeah.
lay back. All right.
So I specialize in whatever is needed at that moment of the day. How's that?
Well, that is good. You know, that I firmly believe real estate agents need to be chameleons. They need to be able to blend and acclimate. So
yeah,
I get that. All right, here comes a hard one, everyone. What time do you wake up and what time do you go to bed?
Okay.
Is that pre-COVID or during COVID?
Well, that's just, listen, I'm just starting to explore the pants with buttons and zippers right now. Okay, the elastics are going to have to go back in. I don't even do yoga, but I have yoga pants, so I'm working on that.
Yeah, I mean, I still maintain the same wake up time. Although today I did sleep in. I usually am up at 6, and I'm in my pajamas by 9. I could fall asleep, but yeah, I pretty much maintain that same. So I'm up. I'm an early riser. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm also up 5:30 or 6. I have meetings usually that start at 8:30. So even during COVID, I have meetings, every morning.
Sorry about that.
And so I'm up at 6, and I normally would have gone to bed earlier, but I've gotten into some of the crazy series on TV. So I find myself up till 11:15. So I'm getting less sleep actually instead of more.
Okay, then that's good. And so Elizabeth, I don't know if your pattern has changed. We're all still working off of, what time of day it is. I actually had to ask a client today. Today is Wednesday, right? Like we have an appointment for Wednesday. Is today Wednesday? So
I have known what day it has been for several months. I'm the late night warrior. So I am usually up at 7. That's kind of my goal, but it's very frequent that I'll be up till 1 or 2. I'm just like, there's something that clicks on in my brain like at 11 p.m. and I will spit out a lot of material between 11 and 1 a.m.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not an early riser. I mean, I'll get up at 6 and I'll go to bed, sometimes 11 or 12, or I'll find myself up at 3.
Oh, geez.
This morning. So,
I'm following Elizabeth's lead again.
Yeah.
I tend to get brainstorms late at night. So I think last night I turned in at 1 a.m. and woke up at 8 with the birds.
Nice. Darlene, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me it varies depending on what time of the month it is. I can be up early as 5:30, 6 o'clock. Generally, I'm up between 6:30 and 7. And last night I didn't go to bed till about 2 or so. So if I pass that window, then I start doing other things. Or if I eat late, then I tend to stay up later.
Yeah, it's learning. I think we're going to see a lot of people trying to get back into the pattern of, the new normal.
Yeah.
Or the old normal. But, I think everybody tried the first week, everybody tried staying on their schedule, but
right.
I think we derailed maybe a little bit. All right.
I think with COVID, I could use, if it wasn't for the financial piece of it, I could use another 2 months because I've been able to do some things at home. I've been able to spend some time with the granddaughter. So, a couple more months, I would have it all together again and ready to run.
If we could have both, like if we could have both the off and the on at the same time, I think that would be perfect. But, what are we going to do? All right. So the softball questions are over now, ladies.
No.
So Miss Stephanie, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
Because here's a good one. What have you learned about being a leader since March here? Because both you and Darlene are 3 months in, right, Darlene? You're 2020 as well.
Actually, I started 2019. This is my second year.
You have 2-year periods. Okay, so you're
Yeah.
already a veteran. That's why you're coming up next. Just giving you a warning.
Oh, okay.
So Miss Stephanie, you get sworn in January. February comes along. And I don't know what you did to March, but here we are. So what have you learned about being a leader?
It happened rather quickly. But I think, what did I learn as a leader? I learned very quickly that it really didn't matter how I was feeling. I had to think of the 3,000 agents that are part of our membership and what their need was. So as with anything, I think even in our business, when you hit like a critical point, you have to find that path and really hone in on who needs help first. And so I think if you have that skill of being a leader, it helps you, deal with this. This happened really quickly. There were a lot of people in need, so we had to identify them. We heard what everybody was saying, but we knew there were some that were, they were settling the next day. Well, they can't leave the house. What do we do? We need to help them. It was calling L&I. How do we get the UNOs? How do we get to a settlement table? How do we handle the escrows, the checks, and this and that? There was so much that went on. So I think that was just kind of like, boom. So I would say being able to adapt to any changing, situation.
And it was unknown too. There was no rule book. There was nothing, no roadmap, nothing, and trying to figure that out. And, I think the association, the state, the national, it's been a roller coaster. So I think you're doing good, Stephanie. And the fact that you're still here, I like it. So Miss Darlene, what advice would you give to someone brand new in the industry in order for them to be successful? What advice would you give them?
The first advice I would give them is to find a mentor. I think that was the most important and valuable thing for me. I mean, you get all the book knowledge, but this is almost like medicine. It's the practice of. Like, you never fully know. There's always something new and different happening. So it's not all in the book. You can't contain it all in the book, all of the instances that you're going to have to deal with in this industry. So I would say get a mentor, someone who has been out there that has a compassion for people, and follow along with them. Do the things that they're saying. And also there's a lot of information out there on the internet. There's YouTube. There's, we have all of our associations as well to use as references, but actually doing it is what's going to set it for you.
Well, they always say when you get your real estate license, there's textbook knowledge, and then the real world.
The real world.
The real world. And then that's why we come back for continuing education, to reset that the rules really are rules, right?
I know Leslie Russell is the one that brought me into real estate. And my first real estate transaction, the young lady was actually looking to rent a condo. I'm like, you can buy this condo. And she could afford to buy it on her own, but she decided she was going to do it along with her sister and brother. So my first transaction, it was 3 different people in 3 different states, and they had the parents involved as well.
Wow. That's a juggling act. But you actually, you have a really good segue here with your mentor, because I'm coming to Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, who was your biggest influence in your career and why?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, I'm in a family business. Kind of one of the obvious answers is my dad. But there was another woman in our office. She was she's a silent partner with my dad. She had just kind of been a real gentle, quiet giant with him. And she was the one who regularly checked in on me. How are you doing? What are you doing? Where are you going? Have you thought about doing this? Her name was Jeannie. And I think she would be the one who I would kind of say, when I look back, kind of regularly, your dad's your dad, right? So you're always having those, that's kind of a parent-daughter conversation, but she was kind of the one who seemed like she wanted to help lead me to opportunities that I know I never would have thought would have existed on my own, and also really helped to grow me as a broker, because I think when you're new and when you're young and you're in the business and you're trying to take on a leadership role, there's always that place of whether or not people trust you or not, and whether or not they're going to share information with you. And she shared information just regularly about what was going on, which then led me to be able to counsel and work with other agents who I knew would have similar circumstances, because she knew that sharing part would help me grow.
Okay. So now I'm going to come to Kathy here. And Elizabeth, I'm telling you, same thing. My father refused to let me buy a fax machine. All right. It was a fight for a fax machine in our office.
Mine was the day I bought the copier, I was like, it's mine now.
Yeah. I'm sure we can share some stories,
Yeah.
socially distanced, but we can
Yeah.
share some serious stories there. All right. So Kathy,
Yes.
what is the one thing you wish you would have known when you first entered real estate that you realized you really had no clue about?
I would say that I think some of the ladies mentioned earlier, it looked easier than it truly is. And I did enjoy working with people. I was already involved in instruction with riding and stable management and training of horses for folks. And I think that was a good background. But honestly, I think sometimes horses listen a little more clearly and closely to you than whether it's clients, it's other agents that you're cooperating with. It's now being involved with ownership in our office, even with working with our agents. Just surprised at what I didn't know about people. But I love learning that, and I'm still learning it. And I think that's what I actually love the best about the industry.
Nice. See, and I love the people too. I think we all do. If not, we wouldn't be in the people
Wouldn't be in the
business, right?
business, right?
It'd be rough. All right, Miss Joan,
Yeah.
coming for you.
Uh-oh.
So in your role as a leader,
Yes.
is there something you wish you could have done differently? And if given the chance, what would you have done? I mean, you've got years of experience.
Yes, I do. So
There's got to be something.
Yeah. So I think that as there are a lot of things as I learned as an agent, and I became a manager and moved up and eventually president. There are many things, but one of the things that I think is really important to do early on is to give back. And I didn't do it early enough. And not just charity. I don't just mean charity. I mean giving back to others who are coming up behind you, and to help other women grow. And so what I get a lot of pleasure out of is to help others and see them blossom. And I didn't do it soon enough. I thought that I had to get I thought I had to keep knowing more before I could. And so so being a mentor, obviously, but just reaching out to do that and to help others grow. So now I've worked at the Forum for Executive Women, and I've worked with young women who are struggling with male leaders who don't give them their due, and they struggle with family and work balance. They struggle with things that a lot of women struggle with that men don't struggle with enough. And so doing that is really rewarding. And I started in our company a group of managers that I have, and they're just starting out, and help them to just see things, to kind of give them my eyes and my ears from all the experiences I've had. So I think that's really important to do early, and you don't need to wait till you know everything.
So if it was early, how early would you say? At what point in time would it be the right time, or that you think that would be a good time?
Well, I think that you can do that very early on. I think that we all have skills that that we excel, or things that we excel in, and so you can really do it early on in pieces. You don't need to wait, and so I think really early on, start to not just take but to give. And so I kept feeling I needed to learn and learn from people and listen. And I did, but I think I could have also shared experiences and helped others that were coming behind me.
I know it's always, you always want to take a moment to teach, to give what you've learned. And I've always said that it's not the age that's on your driver's license, it's the age of your real estate license. So you might have been young when I was 1996, I'm 24 years in the business, I'm 26 years old. My story, I'm sticking to it. But
I'm way older.
Somebody might be older than me, but their real estate license is new. So it has nothing to do with your physical age. It has to do with your real estate license age. And I feel it's always a learning process from everybody. So
Right.
I like the learning process. I like the giving back as well as
Right.
you do. It's part of the circle.
Yeah. It is part of the circle. And I think giving back in real estate is important, but also giving back just about human experiences and working, living side by side with people and helping people to better tolerate each other and feel better about each other and understand that everyone, like I always say, that no matter how much you feel that you may dislike someone, there's always something there. There's a nugget that you can like if you really try. And so to find those pieces, and I think that's a good life lesson as well.
I like that. Find the nugget. I like that.
Well,
All right. So now I'm going to pick on Elizabeth and Kathy, because Kathy was in leadership. It was 35,000 people. And Elizabeth, I don't know, you were, how many millions?
1.4.
1.4 million people, members. All right. You want, exactly. So ladies, in your leadership role during your presidency, is there anything that you wish that you would have done differently?
Go for it, Kathy.
Now, don't fight over it. It's okay. And it's okay if there isn't anything different, but is there anything that you would have done differently? Because it's a lot of people. I mean, Stephanie, you've got 3,000 people. Darlene, I think you have, is it something like 2,000, something like that?
Yes.
So, I mean, no offense, ladies. And then Joan, you're ranking, and I think there's like 4.
7,500 now.
7,500. Oh, sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're growing.
So no offense to you ladies, you only have 4 figures. I'm coming after the 5 figures and above.
I mean, I don't know. For me, I think there's like always, I mean, I'm going to have a running total on everything. I mean, I don't think I'm harder on myself than most anyone else can be harder on me on. There's a couple of instances that I can point to where I wish I would have absolutely just thrown my foot down and said, no, absolutely not. Where I just knew in my gut, I knew in my gut, but I kind of tried to play along with the team, but I knew that that didn't feel right for me. But hey, I'm a team player, let's go do it. And I think sometimes as a leader, you have to realize that you are the leader. And sometimes you have to be that leader. And sometimes that's a hard place to kind of step into and be. Heather, you mentioned, we're all here because we love people. I would never say that. That's not my thing. I love the work, and I'm very, very comfortable in the workplace of doing the work and knowing that I'm very uncomfortable in the people space. So if I look back, I wish I would have done what I tell our agents to do every day and built more of a community just around the personal side of it, to just have more of that, which I think is something I'll struggle with the rest of my life, of trying to feel like others want to be my friend. I don't ever feel like that. I feel like, I think as realtors, we're trying to bring something to someone else, right? We're trying to service them, so I'm always wanting to do something for them and not thinking that there's any reason they would want something from me, maybe. So to me, that's where, looking back, I realized I was so focused on making sure I had the work in place that I probably lost the opportunity to be around some amazing people that might have been more of a friend to me, that I came in contact with, got to work with, got to sit in a meeting with, you know, that I just should have loosened up a little bit and gone to the happy hour and had the dinner and said hi. But I was like, hey, how we doing? So.
Okay, so you might have turned off the business a little.
Yeah.
For fun. Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to find that balance. And I think it's tough for some people. I know it's tough for me to try and find the difference between the personal and the work side of things.
And I also think as a woman, we're trying, I mean, at least for me, and maybe it's just my environment, you're always trying to prove yourself, you know, or, you know, and you want to make sure that you're proving yourself and that you're valuable and that you're smart and that you're doing this and you're doing that. And you get so focused on that track that sometimes you forget to just say, hey.
I'm with you, Miss Kathy.
So you're going, Elizabeth, right where probably I was heading, which is I was only the 9th woman president in Pennsylvania in our 100 years. And so I really felt like, okay, I have to make sure I hit the ball out of the park and don't leave any stone unturned. So maybe I could have perhaps enjoyed a few more things along the way instead of concentrating on making sure I got everything done, and perhaps delegated a few more things than trying to make sure it was perfect when I was doing it. But I loved every second of it. I don't regret that I got to all of our associations, all 40 of them, and made a boatload of friends along the way. Really enjoyed it. But I think what Elizabeth said about sometimes as a woman, we tend to, or maybe it's just my failing, but I tend to want everything to be absolutely perfectly done. And sometimes it's better just to go with what you have and move on to the next project. And I also tend to be a workhorse where nothing seems too daunting to me and I want to take it all the way to the end. So, but I don't regret even my regrets, because it was just a wonderful experience. And I absolutely recommend it to everybody else that's listening tonight to step up and get involved in volunteer leadership, whether it's at your local, state, or at the national. It's been a great learning experience. I'm still learning and hope to continue doing so.
I agree with you 100% on that one, but I won't get on that stump today. I promise. All right. So now this one's coming out to everybody. Do you feel that real estate industry is harder for a woman now or back when you became licensed? And we have a lot of different licensed, time frames here. So we're going to start, I think I'll pitch this one to Darlene first, then I'll come to Stephanie, and then I'll come to the rest of you.
I think my mindset just isn't there, probably because, as the other two ladies spoke about, we as women, we tend to want to do things to the best that we can. And so I'm so engrossed with doing the business, the industry, that I don't really notice all the other ins and outs. But being a woman in the industry, I think it is different. And especially being a African-American woman in the industry, I don't see where we're embraced quite as much. It reminds me of going into the medical field, and a lot of the techs, when we went to the hospitals, there was someone that embraced them, that they related to. But for me, there really wasn't someone there. So I think for minorities that it's a little bit of a different challenge for us with getting those mentors or those team advisors to help us along in the industry. I think it's a bit of a tougher climb.
Is there anything that you would say, making a recommendation, what could happen to extend, something to might be more inclusive?
Yeah, I think if people would reach out to those that have a different background and upbringing, kind of step out of the comfort zone, especially for new people, it would be hard for someone new coming into the industry to step out of their comfort zone because they're still learning. So they're a little uneasy with those approach unless they're just really outgoing and don't care. But with just beginning to learn, and the book knowledge is very different than the reality of you getting out there. I would say that for those veterans, and we're all, especially women, we're all kind of those workhorses. But if we can just step back, take a breather, and kind of look out for some people that are of a different background that you could reach out, speak to, and talk to, I think it would be advantageous for all parties involved.
I agree. I agree 100%. Miss Stephanie?
So is it easier now, or, well, I would have to say, you know, more than half of my real estate career was in new construction, and that was a very male, it is very male dominated industry. And being on the sales end, you're always trying to prove yourself, and there was always that distinction between sales and construction. There was always that battle, and it was always, sales was dominated by women and construction was dominated by men. So there was that natural butting of the heads. But I think in residential, when you start out as an agent, the pool is bigger. So you're kind of all on the same ground. And then as you advance your career, the pool gets smaller. And I think that's where the challenge is to, you're constantly proving yourself, because the higher you go, in certain areas, it becomes more male dominated. So you're the lone woman, with all these men, and you feel like you have to prove yourself. And so it's a balancing act. I would say, the higher you go, I think it's a little more challenging. You just have different challenges.
Now we're going to step back a little bit further. So we've got Elizabeth, who was in the 90s. So throwing the same question to you, but at the same time, because you were in a family-run business, do you think it's different for women back then versus now? And also, what did you have to overcome in a company that was run by your father? Was there a big difference in that to prove yourself different?
So I think to what Stephanie just made the comment as, I don't know that it's harder or easier, but I think it's different. And I think if you look at traditionally run CEO companies, men have, in some instances, one of their skill sets is delegation. And generally they are delegating to their assistant, which has generally been a woman whose skill set is much more systemized. So I think today, because of the skills that are required in real estate, it's very, very difficult to do it by yourself. You have, social media, distribution of data, all of the things that you have to do, that team environment is so important. So I think a woman possesses that systematic piece of it, which is great. So I think that gives them a little bit of advantage. But if they can't work in the delegation piece of it, then I think that's where men still seem to have just a little bit, because they're just kind of letting things go a little bit better than sometimes that we do. As far as for me, it wasn't any issue of necessarily being a man or a woman. My grandmother had the company before my dad did.
So sorry about that.
Okay. No, you're good. For me, it was more age. It was definitely more age-based. At least that's what I felt like, was to do that. Good, bad, or otherwise, my dad was an AR president in 2001. I started in 96. In 97, he was gone for half of the year. And so I still tease him. I'm like, seriously, like, what really was your plan? Because you didn't have one. And so, when he was out the door, I had to figure it out. And because they would come and I sat outside his door, they'd look for him. He wasn't there. I'm like, what do you need? And I had to figure out how to be the one to help him. So, you had to lean into the realtor family and education and all of that to try to get some answers.
That's a good point too. All right, Joan, we're rolling back to the 80s. This is, you know,
Okay.
when the agreement of sale was one page, seller sided only.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I think there were typewriters involved, right?
There fax machine, yeah, typewriters. I don't even little cards with houses on them because you didn't have computers.
Oh, the MLS. Yeah.
So
I mean,
you
if,
had all of that. I think I agree with Stephanie. I think as an agent, it was pretty easy to be a female and in the business, and most of the women there were so many women in the business, part-time or full-time as agents, and so it was kind of assumed that that's what you would be. And even as you moved into the sales manager role, there were a lot of women. But once you got beyond that, there were no women. And as you look across the country, and I'm sure Elizabeth can see this, there are more women today than there were even 5 years ago or 10 years ago in CEO roles or in president roles. And it's been a male-dominated, owned small business kind of industry. And a lot of it's family, but a lot of it's not. And it's just been men because they seem to be more of a risk taker than women in starting these businesses. In real estate anyhow, or it seemed that way. So I think today, however, you can, certainly as an agent, there are many males who have come into the business, and a lot since the last recession. And I've watched them grow teams and really create a business out of this, where women treat it more like a one-person show, where men have gathered teams more easily, and they seem to make them bigger because of whether, I'm not sure why, but that's how it seems. And so if you look at the large teams, there are some female large teams, but there are many more male large teams. And so they seem to have put systems in place that women didn't do. So as systematic as we are, I've watched this over the last 10 years occur, and it's like, whoa, we were way ahead and we were the top. And now you see a lot of male teams being the top. And I think it's important for women now, not just to be realtors if they want to grow a business, but also grow the business. So I don't know if the men were more business-like, and we're more sales-like. I'm not sure, but that's what I've noticed recently. But as you go through, I would tell you that in today's world, women struggle. There are very few women CEOs in the country for Fortune 500 companies. The women that I mentored at the Forum for Executive Women were struggling because they're in a male-dominated world, and it was really hard for them to climb and go farther. And I know when I started my role, I was the only woman around as a woman president of a larger company. And over the years, more women have come into that role. And so it's a little bit easier, but there's a struggle. There's a struggle that goes on as you grow in the ranks, so to speak.
Interesting. All right, Kathy, going back to the 70s.
Yeah, well, I concur with all the points that the other women have brought up. I mean, all along the way, we've seen all of that. I think probably more so the time itself, the societal changes that have occurred. I do believe it was more difficult just in general for a female agent starting in the late 70s. And I'll just cite a story which might seem surprising to some today, but expecting my first child in 1980, I know for a fact that I lost a client who did not want to work with a 5-month pregnant woman. They were concerned about me traipsing around the field and up and down the stairs. And I will say perhaps a little bit more of an attitude that I should be home taking care of the house. So there was that out there. I think it's much less common today, thank goodness. But that societal change had not occurred in the late 70s yet.
It's funny that you say that, because I was a teacher during the late 70s, and my principal, when I was pregnant, wanted me out of that school as fast as he could get me out and talk to me every day. And he treated me like a pregnant, not like a person. And I think that was just the way it was. And he just really thought that, you know, I needed to like go and not bring my pregnant self to work every day. So
Wow.
that was
I think it was shocking for some gentlemen, you know, your broker, your manager, that you were showing up in the office, and I felt very comfortable and was active working the day that I went into labor. So I had no issue with that physically. Perhaps it was their difficulty with having you there, as you mentioned, Joan.
Yeah.
It was more of a bother to them and certainly to me. But I did have a client that wasn't comfortable with it as well.
I think there's still, just from the association side, I fight it with men who are looking to make appointments on a national level with, you know, looking 2 and 3 years down the line and saying, well, she's got a 2-year-old. Well, that means she's probably going to have another one, you know, who's going to take care of the child when they're at home. And it's not okay.
No, it's not.
My mom used to tell me stories about how she made more money than my grandfather did, but she could not open up a Strawbridge and Clothier credit card without his permission.
When I applied for my first mortgage with my husband, they looked at us and they said, so are you planning on having children? I mean, it would be totally illegal today. Yes. Well, then we cannot count your income. You're not going to be working. And so,
Wow.
but it was right out there, overt. That's just the way it was. So,
Wow.
Go
ahead, Joan. Go ahead.
No, so I think it really prepares you for what's ahead and what you have, what you, at least you know what you're fighting. At least you know what you're up against.
I love hearing those stories too, because I'm 50 and, you know, did not experience, it just baffles me that in my lifetime that is, you know, that was going on. So I take those stories and I keep them, and I remember what it was like for, you know, women, you know, in the 70s and 80s. And that keeps it really green, and we just keep moving forward, right?
Well, it's always
we do it for them.
Exactly. It's always important to remember the history. You know,
Yeah.
that there were times when if you were to apply for an apartment and you were a female, you may not get the apartment because at any point in time you can become pregnant.
Yes.
And how would you be able to work and, you know, raise a child at the same time? That's impossible. And I know, especially, you know, on this thread and out there are many, many very successful, powerful single mamas. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see the evolution. All right, so let's just chit chat a little bit more. I'll throw this out to everyone. So anybody here have a weakness? You have a weakness? So my weakness is my face. I don't mean it like that. I don't mean it like that, but I'm very expressionistic. So you pretty much know what I'm thinking, and I don't even realize I'm doing it. So Zoom has been really helpful.
Yeah.
So that is one of my weaknesses, and I try, but then I look even weirder when I'm trying to remember not to make a face when this person's saying something to me, like, huh? So that's one of my weaknesses is my face.
So I've been accused of rolling my eyes and not realizing that I rolled my eyes when I like disgusted with something, or I think that like somebody's saying something not very smart, and I've been called out on it. So I've gotten much better. I think I have anyway.
I think I told you mine. I mean, I still absolutely struggle with rejection, you know, even recruiting. I'm like, God, I just, you know, that heart just still hits me. And I'm like, you got to get over this. I'm like, when am I ever going to get over this? You know, just like it's, and you just have to keep going and going and going. But I struggle with just sometimes the feeling of inadequacy, and I know that's just not, what do I bring of value to the relationship, to the conversation? So
I can hear you on that one.
I think a lot of us do. I think a lot of us do, even it's like personally, and maybe not at work, because you work, Elizabeth, your work has been so everything that you've done is just so high standard, and everything that you've done. But I think personally, we put so much into the work that we do end up not having enough of a social existence. And I have many friends who just, I was working and they were out doing friend stuff, and you just lose touch, and then you become insecure about it, and you don't know what you have to offer, and plus you're not really interested in the linens and the baking the cake and whatever they're talking about, and so then you avoid it, and then it goes on and on, and so you end up with friends. I end up with friends in the industry rather than my social friends.
Well, and even in the industry, I think sometimes, you're just still trying to do better and better and better. And, and maybe that's a strength, but then in some instances, it's also a weakness, because when is it ever good enough?
Yeah, I think as women, sometimes we have a hard time with being selfish and taking some time for ourselves, because we're so much into taking care of the family, taking care of the business, learning, because it's never purpose. I mean, it's never perfect, excuse me, because this is a practice. That's how I see real estate. It's a practice. It's not an exact science. It's always changing. You never know who you're going to meet and what situation is going to have to occur. You have to be flexible. And we put a lot of energy into it. So we have to be careful and take that downtime. I mean, I have to remind myself of that at times, relax. You got a patio. Why don't you go out on it and just sit out there and have your hot chocolate and reflect, or read a good book. Or, as you said, reach out to a friend or a family, spend some time with the grandchild. Having a grandchild, that does help, because if they're there, they're going to demand some attention. So we have to remind ourselves about the simple things in life. You can't, the simple things that bring you joy, they are free.
I like that. Simple things in life are free. I like that.
I think that's all well said, ladies. And I will say sometimes I think I bite off more than I can chew. So perhaps I say yes too often when I'm asking something. I want to do my very, very best and have the outcome be perfect. And so I'm spread too thin, I think, sometimes in doing that service for folks, whether it's, taking on a leadership or helping agents within the office or working with your clients yourself. If you don't keep that in mind, that you need to compartmentalize your time and include, as you just said, Darlene, some time for yourself, you can get burnout, I think, just becoming too involved in too many things at one time.
Agree. I think sometimes our greatest asset is our greatest weakness too. Determination, just determined to, do a great job, and determined to be a great mom and a great grandmom, and being able to compartmentalize and structure your days where you can turn off real estate and, take that time for yourself and for family. So that's my weakness, is shutting it off, not being able to shut it off sometimes. The day can get away from you, and, you have kids, and, you have dinners to make and homework. And so, yeah, I think that could be a big weakness. Your asset could be your weakness too.
I agree. I think my weakness is going to get me arrested one day. Just saying. I already ticked off half a city council in a an entire judge one day in a courtroom, but it's just, but we'll see. But I mean, I agree with you. It's insane. What we got going on. We got a lot of great comments. So, and if everybody gets a chance to read the chat, it's, we're seeing everybody. Stephanie, I know Stephanie and my Stephanie both agreed. You guys said something similar, which is awesome. All right. So then, anybody reading any good books or listening to any good podcasts? Anything that you'd like to share? Anything that's out there? Because now we're going to have to end the Zoom soon. The Zooms are going to go away. So people will be back to reading books and podcasts. So anything you've got out there that you want to share, anything that you've listened to or read and you think's a good.
This is my jam right now. This is completely, with this whole thing, like what has COVID forced you to do? It has 100% forced me to focus 100% on myself because I had to be the leader. My team needed me 100%. And, it was like, wait, I have to do this. And one of the podcasts I was listening to, podcast, was Oprah's. And she was talking about, the oxygen mask and how you got to put the oxygen mask on first yourself before you can take care of anyone else. And I've realized that for me, so every day I'm going live with my agents. Every day I'm trying to have, energy is my word. You got to have energy. And for me, that gives me energy. But then I also realized that I love learning. I love learning, so I'm listening to Brian Buffini 100%. Hopefully everybody's listened to his last one with Lauren Shun on what every homeowner should know is like mandatory for anyone in this business. I'm listening to John Maxwell, Brene Brown just started a podcast here right now. I mean, not kind of all the big ones, but it's just that anything that's going live, right now, there's so much content and, I've got my journals just right here and I'm taking notes, and then I realize that gives me the content then to share with my agents, to share with their clients. So, I'm trying to walk and listen to that podcast and take notes. And it's just, I've just realized I've been missing a little bit of that in my life.
So you want to comment on?
No, I like it.
Okay.
Keep going, Joan. Go for it.
Okay. So there's a podcast called The Learning Leader with Ryan Hawk, and he's really good. He has really good guests on who have really good advice on leading, and I've really enjoyed that. I've also we had a speaker, Heather Hansen. I don't know if any of you know who she is. She was an attorney, and she was a speaker for our company, and she has a book called The Elegant Warrior. And it's about, winning while being elegant. And I just related to that a whole lot because I don't really love confrontation at all. So if I can find a way to, not have that in my life and to still win when needed, it really works well for me. So I would tell you that those two things. And I also have, we are online all the time. We have Zoom, meetings every day. And just, I've really spent the time. It's interesting. I see my team and our entire team much more than I did before. So I'd be stuck in my office behind a desk, and now I'm seeing everybody's faces. And my husband said to me the other day, he says, Zoom has and Google Meets has gotten more intimate than being out in public, because now being out in public, everyone's wearing a mask. You really can't see them, and everybody walks by each other very quickly, and they don't want to make contact. And when you're on Zoom, you can make eye contact, you can see smiles. It's I've really enjoyed that, being able to relate more often than just sitting behind my desk and looking at reports.
Well, and Joan, haven't you found, like, I am so much more productive at home because no one's stopping by my office 10 times a day, which has made me totally rethink how I need to focus my time in the office and then when I can focus on the computer.
Absolutely. I don't plan to go back and work in the office ever again. I don't think, as far as a permanent, every day. I think that you can get an awful lot done. And I believe that these Zoom meetings will continue. I think that Zoom office meetings, for those of you who are in sales offices, is a great thing because we get much better attendance. People are much more engaged, and it makes for a richer meeting, because it's really hard to get people to a sales office meeting in some offices. And so I think that those kinds of things, and I also think virtual open houses will continue, because buyers are just they found it convenient, and they can see what they want to see, and maybe they will just go see the home that they after they do all their virtual opens. Maybe they'll see 1 or 2 homes versus 4 or 5. So I just think that this whole COVID thing has been horrible, but yet it's brought out, I think, some really good, we'll have a better quality of life because of it in the end. So
I think it's brought up better communication. I think you're right. You might have 1 or, maybe a handful of people at an office meeting versus if everybody can tag in from wherever they are.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
I agree. I think the Zoom conferences will continue for the reasons Joan just cited. You can have more of your agents in attendance at them. They're comfortable. They can be in their own space and yet participate. So I think that adds to the conversation a little bit.
Yeah.
Finished, and Elizabeth did a great job with our mid-year meetings with NAR, and really some terrific sessions, as well as our meetings and the board of directors. It all went well. Truly, the staff did a terrific job, and listening to all the various speakers, I think, was a great learning experience. We had terrific attendance at the committee meetings and at the sessions, because more people were able to join in, since they weren't in Washington, D.C.
Right. You didn't have to
know if it was. I think we'll still need the effectiveness of meeting in person with our legislators. I would not trade that for anything in trying to make our advocacy impact. But I think the meetings in general turned out well. I'm going to go to a different point. I am following the same prescription as you ladies with webinars, some great energy and learning, and I love learning. So it was a good time to dedicate some time to that. But I want to mention a book that I finished that I found instructive, relaxing from a personal standpoint, but I think instructive with a lot of useful points in business and in your personal life. And it's, we would say Circe, but Kirke is actually, I believe, the Greek pronunciation, by Madeline Miller. Fantastic book, and with a woman at the center of attention. I think it's something that I would recommend to all of you.
Thanks, I like that. Anybody else?
Well, I definitely think with the virtual meetings that those will continue. Above all, it saves all of the travel time. So it adds to the quality of life. I think through this COVID thing, the coronavirus, I think it has a lot of us looking at our quality of life. For me, longevity runs in the family. So I can remember at 27 thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I'm 27. I'll probably live to 100 years old. Like, what am I going to do? And I just feel like, hey, a higher being, the Lord said, you know what? I'm going to shut down the world for a minute, just so you can take just a breather to think about what you're doing and what your quality of life is. And it was kind of great to be able to drive around, and there really wasn't any traffic. It was like Sunday driving every day, right? And I actually enjoyed being home. But I became just as busy, whether being home for COVID or out in the world showing houses and attending meetings. I feel like I'm just as busy. So I really have to be careful and really think about spending time with the family and speaking with friends.
I hear you on that one. Well, Darlene, I'm going to stick with you, Darlene. What accomplishment are you most proud of, personal and professional?
Well, I think personally, we're always proud of our children. So at this point, I can say my child is truly an adult. You know, she's on her own, paying her own bills, her own car. No, actually, she just paid off her car. So paying her own car insurance. She buys her own food. And she's about to embark on going back to school for nursing. So I'm proud of that accomplishment, you know, that she has made it to this point. And truly, she's a productive adult, working things out on her own. She did come home. She's in Austin, but they shut down the office. So she said, Mom, I'm coming home. It's just kind of funny because that made us practice the social distancing because we're all on the phone. So between myself, her, my husband, we can't all be in the same room talking on the phone. So I'm really proud of her and, you know, where she is today, how far we've come. You know, as a little baby, your first child, you're thinking, how am I going to do this? So I'm proud of that. As far as business, I'm happy to be in this leadership role. It was something that was voted in, not what I was truly expecting, but I feel as though like where the Lord gives you vision, he will make provision. And I have a really great board and staff that I work with that has embraced me and helped me through this. And I've also taken some leadership classes through BCAR. So perhaps I might be in some of the roles that you ladies are in. We'll see. We'll see what kind of mentoring and wisdom I get along the way to encourage me that way. And I've been in other leadership roles as well. So maybe professionally, I do have my MBA and I got that later in life. So to accomplish that is pretty significant as well.
That is pretty awesome. And even though I'm District 1 and BCAR is a different district, I'd love to see you up at PAR. I'm just saying.
You just saying?
I'm just saying.
Committee
applications went out this week. Maybe an email will just find its way to you.
Okay, I'll be looking.
All right, Joan, you ready?
I think I'm ready.
Like, share. If you could turn back time, what advice would you give to the younger you? If I could turn back time.
So here's the so you know how when you're younger you think you know it all. You know, if you have teenagers, you know that they really think they know everything. And if I could turn back time, I would have listened a lot more to people who were more experienced and even just people around me. I think I was a typical realtor where you talk too much and you don't listen enough. I would walk into a listing and tell them what I thought without first hearing what they thought, and it didn't do me justice. So I've learned over the years. I'm still not, I wouldn't say I have an A+ rating in it, but I think listening is an active listening, really listening, and is really important and a wonderful skill that I admire in people, and not just jumping in to give my opinion, because people really won't care about your opinion unless they know you care about them, and listening's the best way to show people that you care. So
I agree. It's hindsight. I can still remember somebody telling me, don't force growing up to be 21. And I was like, what do you know? Now 26 again. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, Miss Stephanie.
Yes.
How are you handling the pandemic in the home life? How's everything going there? Are you doing anything to center yourself? Change anything? Did you learn anything different about yourself during this shutdown?
I'm waiting for the shutdown to be over so I can take a break and go on a vacation or paint the room that I initially wanted to do when this all started. I thought, oh, okay, now I'm forced to stay home and we're going to cook and we're going to paint and we're going to redo this room. And it was like, no. So, yeah, I think handling, at one point, it was at 5:30, everything gets shut down. I just have to turn off the computer. I have to stop the phones. I have to stop everything and just and focus on dinner, focus on family time. My son is a junior in high school, and I mean, homeschooling, it's like I had to have the weekly meetings because I think, honestly, I could handle kindergarten, I could handle first grade, but trig and calculus and Spanish 4, it's like I can't do that and work and you know, take care of the association. But you know, as far as managing, I have a great support system at home, and with the association, the staff is incredible at GPAR. None of this happens without them. So yeah, I think support, I recognize that, you know, if you don't have that, you can't function. So yeah, I do carve out time to do meditation, exercise, do, you know, take some time to myself, at least an hour of whether it's running, working out, or just sitting for like 15 minutes and focus. And so yeah, that's kind of how managing. And then going to the grocery store is always fun. But
I'm gonna get arrested. I go the opposite direction of the arrows all the time and not realize it.
I yelled at the store, and I was going in the right direction, and somebody yelled at me. I was so upset. And the woman behind me was like yelling at the other woman, saying, "No, she's going the right way." A mess.
You know, and then they messed me up because then they took the arrows out because then there was a problem with the arrows, and I couldn't do it.
I order online now. I can't deal.
I let my husband go. He lets me go.
Same here.
My husband's been a really good sport about that. I just, you know, send him a list, and he eventually comes home. So, but I did the same thing. And for the first couple, you know, days during the shutdown, I was like, what are we gonna do? Oh, that lasted about 2.5 days before I had my war room set up somewhere, and we were back. And my husband swears I've worked more during the pandemic than I do, you know, without the pandemic.
I think we all have.
You need more.
We all have.
I agree.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Because everybody knows you're there.
Yes.
It's like it's not like you're not there. You're there. So.
Right.
Or at least you're supposed to be there. We know you're there somewhere.
Well, I listen, I'm all for, you know, my vehicle has 300 miles a gallon, you know, or whatever it is. You know, I haven't really moved it much, so I've saved on gas the last 60 days.
Yes.
You know, my mileage, because it's easy enough for us to put. I mean, Kathy, you must have put a lot of mileage on your car during your presidency. So we know what that's like.
A little over 19,000, I think, is where we figured it was.
That's traveling the state.
It's a big state, but well worth it to meet everyone.
Elizabeth,
But that's beautiful that you did. It's beautiful that you did stop by each and every one of those, because it made those people feel valued and important, I'm sure.
Well, they are valued and important. And it was really important for us and for PAR to know exactly what we needed to help them with. And that's the only way you learn. Pennsylvania is a big state. The practices vary across the state.
Yes.
It was exquisitely important to know what they needed, what we could do better, how we could help them. I mean, that's all part of, I think, being a servant leader, which is, I think, the best way to take care of your members.
Sure.
The ladies, I'm going to throw out the last question to all of you, but I'll start with Elizabeth and then go to Kathy after this, and then we'll go to Joan, Darlene, and end with Stephanie. So, what words of encouragement or sage advice would you give to future leaders?
It's easy. Own it.
Oh, yes.
Own it.
Right on.
That was our, you know, I think, again, if you're going to do this, if you're going to take on a role, if whatever it is, you know, if it's in your family, if it's in your business, if it's in an association, you got to own it. and you've got to realize that it's up to you. And you've got to, if you want to get from here to here, you've got to work harder. You know, it doesn't just happen. And I think when you do that, it's kind of like Heather was talking about with the fax machine. You know, my story I mentioned was a copy machine. And it was like, no, I need a new copy machine and I'm going to go buy one. And that's how it's going to be. And I'm always going to remember that moment. And my dad was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm buying the copy machine because it's mine now. And there's so much power in understanding that that is now your role. And there's fear and there's worry and there's all that anxiety that goes along with it. But it also is uplifting and exciting. And I think when you show that to others, that you're willing to own it, then they are as well to make, to help you. And you just have to send those signals to the world that says, yeah, this is mine. And most of the time the world's going to respond back and go, great, then let's help you figure it all out.
Like that one, Kathy.
Awesome. I think as a leader, one of the most important things that you do as a leader is make sure that you're inviting other people to follow. Bring up the next generation of leaders, and I'm especially conscious of that with women. This whole conference is centered around women warriors, and I think we need more of them. I think we need more of that warrior attitude to influence our leaders. So I would say getting that next generation behind us is our responsibility. And in doing that, when you build your leadership team, count on that team. It's not just you. And so in talking about that, I had this gentleman that was part of my leadership team, and he's doing a fantastic job leading Pennsylvania right now during COVID-19. Mr. Bill Festa, who was my treasurer during my presidential year. I could not have done my year without support of Bill McFalls and Todd Umbenhauer, as well as our CEO, Mike McGee. I mean, that was his first. Right. So it was really they're there with my back. And I had a great immediate past president in Todd Pollinchuk, who is now a legislator and a realtor champion for Pennsylvania. So just, they taught me a lot and they supported me. Knowing that they're there in following and taking over and filling your shoes is an awesome feeling. So Bill says hello, and I thank him for everything that he's doing for Pennsylvania during this COVID-19.
How do we not have Bill Festa heads? That's what I want to know.
You gave this to me, actually. See, when the year I was president, when I visited GPAR for one of your general meetings, I ended up with Bill Festa. Awesome. And I've used this multiple times.
It's all right.
Stephanie, look in the storage closets. There's got to be some Bill heads around there somewhere.
It's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
That's so funny.
So Miss Darlene, what about you?
I would say be yourself, take the risk, and don't be so hard on yourself. You know, you have to jump in there. You're not gonna maybe do everything right. So forgive yourself, but jump in there and do it. Somebody needs to do it, and we need more people in there to do it. So be yourself, jump in there, take the risk, and don't be so hard on yourself.
I like that. Don't be so hard on yourself, because that you can, I think you're your own worst critic. Yes. In most cases, you can beat yourself up a lot.
Right.
Miss Joan?
Yes. So, you know, I have several things, but I think what comes to mind just after listening to Darlene is we all want to be perfectionists. We don't need to be. We just need to be excellent at what we do, and we should be satisfied with excellence. It will take you a long, long way. And what I have found is that you need to keep putting one foot in front of the other, take those steps forward, even though that you may be afraid. Just do it, and it'll be okay. You'll figure it out. And so be willing to take some risks. what I tell everybody at our company is you have to get to the edge of your comfort zone before there's growth. And so you have to be able to work at the edge of your comfort zone. And I agree with Kathy about the followers. And I think, you know, we all said, I think at some point during this evening, that taking care of the people that you work with and that work, you know, for you and with you is so important, because if you do that, they will support you and you will get a whole lot more accomplished. So delegate. Don't be afraid to delegate. And you can, if you believe in excellence and not perfection, it's easier to delegate. They won't do it your way, but they will get it done and they'll work really hard for you. So I really think that, you know, having courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. You just go forward anyway. And I think that's been something that's been, it's always in my head. Like, it's okay. You can be afraid. Just keep going. It'll be all right.
I like that. Miss Stephanie? El
Wow,
President?
I have to follow all of this.
Yes.
So I'm going to say yes, everything that they said. I think being yourself, working really hard, getting back up. If you get knocked down, get back up and just dust yourself off. Remain centered. You know, when you get to that leadership role, being able to recognize someone's strengths and really complimenting them on that. And knowing that it's not about you, it's about them, and to help others. So yeah, take it easy on yourself, work hard and get back up, and always remain centered, knowing that you're doing this for others, and that it could be in leadership, it could be with your clients. You know, always giving, the Go-Giver. That's my go-to book, or the Go-Givers. So.
The Go-Givers, I like that.
I like it.
Well, ladies, I appreciate every one of you. You know, you're all part of my hometown, born and raised in Philly, but I do have to let the cat out of the bag. The little rumor mill that, you know, Miss Elizabeth Mendenhall, even though she's not here, started here, spent a couple of years here in Philly. Is that true? Is that rumor true?
Yeah. Spent the first 2 years of my life there. I was not born there. I was a Christmas baby, so I was born back in Missouri. But my dad taught at the Philadelphia Art Institute, and so first 2 years of my life were in Philadelphia.
Wow.
It is precious to him. He took us back several times, so I feel like this is still part of my story.
Well,
That's great.
If you ever,
Good
if
to
you're ever
know.
back
Good
in
to know.
town,
Yeah.
exactly.
Awesome.
If you're, it's a Philadelphia connection, so you know you're always you're part of us. We'll
Lots
take
of
it.
stories about the Happy Pepsi. Does that mean anything?
The Happy
Anyone?
Pepsi.
The
Happy Pepsi. I don't know. Google it.
Hey, I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to take a look and see the Happy Pepsi. I don't know. Anybody ringing a bell on that one?
Yeah, anyone?
Oh,
Where was he? I don't know.
I could only speculate.
we might
Thinking
have
about Coke.
we might have to talk to Dad about that.
Yeah.
All right. So here comes the extreme last quick lightning round here. Ready? What one word describes you? Elizabeth?
My one word is always energy.
Energy. Kathy?
Workhorse.
Joan?
Determined.
Darlene?
My mother would say determined,
Okay.
even
And-
as a child. Yes.
Stephanie?
Well, determined was mine, so
That's
determined or
Great
thoughtful.
minds think
Yep.
alike.
It
Great
can be
minds
yours.
think alike.
You listen, we can share. Right? So I think this is a good time, good segment. I loved having all of you on. I love seeing all the faces on Zoom. I can't wait to see, you know, your masked faces out there in the world, and hopefully someday, you know, your unmasked faces. I miss all of you. I'd give you all virtual hugs because I'm not allowed to give real hugs. And I think you know, one of the good takeaways we had was just to remember to put on the oxygen mask first, so you
There
can
you
help
go.
others.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Love
Good
that.
ending.
Good
Well, I
ending.
just want to thank you for having me on the panel. And for those interested in PMBR, or we're the local chapter of NAREB, NAREB. You can go to NAREB.com or PhillyMBR.com to learn more about us.
Awesome.
and we are definitely welcoming to our members.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's been a
Thanks,
pleasure.
everyone.
It's been
Thank you,
an honor
Scott.
to be with everyone.
Thanks,
Yes.
Stephanie.
Oh, it was such a pleasure.
I agree.
Thank you.
An
Thanks for
honor,
coming.
an honor and a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely, Kathy.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
So
Be
long.
out
Thank
there.
you.
Safe and healthy all.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay healthy.
Yes.